The Uber smelled like pine air freshener and stale fast food. I had a drainage tube taped to my side, a prescription I hadn't filled yet, and a phone full of unanswered texts from my wife, Tamara. 3 days. I'd been in St. Francis Memorial for 3 days after emergency gallbladder surgery, and the woman I'd been married to for 6 years had visited me exactly once, the night I checked in. After that, silence. 3 blue check marks on every message. You good, bro? The driver, a young guy named Aaron, glanced at me through the rearview mirror. He must have noticed me wincing when I shifted. Yeah, I lied. Just heading home from the hospital. Your people coming to meet you. I almost laughed out loud. My people. My best friend Brandon Williams had offered to come get me, but I told him not to bother. I was a grown man. 34 years old. I bought my own house in Decatur, Georgia, a 3-bedroom craftsman I'd renovated with my own 2 hands. I didn't need anybody carrying me home like I was helpless. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that the house I was heading back to wasn't mine anymore. Not the way I'd left it. I'd bought that house 2 years before Tamara and I even got serious. My name. My mortgage. My deed. Every beam, every coat of agreeable grey paint, every Saturday morning at Home Depot picking out crown moulding, that was me. Aaron turned onto my street. The familiar oak tree came into view. Everything looked completely normal from the outside. But when I reached into my pocket for my keys, something cold and quiet curled in my stomach. Something that had nothing to do with the surgery. I stood at my own front door like a stranger. The key didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. I pulled it out and stared at it, like maybe I'd grabbed the wrong one. But no. That was the same key with the small red rubber cap I'd put on it 2 years ago, so I'd stopped confusing it with my car key. I tried a third time. The lock didn't move. What in the... I pressed my ear to the door. Music. Luther Vandross. A house is not a home. The irony would have been funny if my stitches weren't pulling and my whole world wasn't starting to tilt sideways. I knocked. Hard. Tamara. Footsteps. Then the door cracked open, but it wasn't my wife standing there. It was a man. Big. Broad-shouldered. Dark-skinned, wearing a fitted white t-shirt like he owned the place. He looked at me the way you look at a delivery driver who knocked on the wrong door. Can I help you? He said. My brain stopped processing for a full 5 seconds. Who are you? My voice dropped dangerously low. The question is who are you? He said, crossing his arms. I'm Brandon Scott, I said. This is my house. My name is on the deed. I pay the mortgage and the property taxes on this address. Now who are you, and why won't my key open my own front door? He gave me a slow, measuring look, then turned his head. Tamara. Somebody here for you. Somebody. He called me somebody. I heard heels clicking on the hardwood floors I'd laid myself. Tamara appeared in the doorway wearing a silk robe, hair freshly done, looking like she hadn't lost a single minute of sleep while I was lying in a hospital bed alone. Brandon, she said flatly. You're out early. Early. My voice cracked. Tamara, I was supposed to come home yesterday. I texted you. I called you. I left 2 voicemails. She blinked. No apology. No guilt. Just calculation behind those eyes. I figured you needed more time to rest. Hospitals are better for recovery. Are you serious right now? I pointed past her. Who is this man? She didn't even flinch. This is Darius. He's a friend. A friend. I looked at Darius, then back at her. A friend who's in my house, answering my door, wearing comfortable clothes, while I'm standing outside with surgical stitches because the locks have been changed. Darius leaned against the door frame, unbothered. Tamara, you want me to handle this? Handle this. My voice broke, not from weakness, from sheer disbelief. Handle what? I own this house. I have documentation. Handle what exactly? Tamara touched Darius on the arm, soft, familiar, intimate. The kind of touch that doesn't happen between people who've only been friends. That one gesture told me everything about how long this had really been going on. "Give us a minute," she told him quietly. He went back inside. Walked right back into my house like it was nothing. I looked at Tamara. Really looked at her. 8 years together. 6 years married. I'd supported her through her master's degree, through the miscarriage in 2021, through her mother's cancer scare. I stayed when she pushed me away. I stayed when she went cold. I stayed when she said she needed space. Every single time, I stayed. "How long?" I asked. "Brandon." "How long has he been here, Tamara?" She exhaled slowly, like I was inconveniencing her. "About 2 weeks." 2 weeks. I'd been in the hospital 3 days and Darius had been there for 2 weeks. I did that math and felt sick in a way the surgery had absolutely nothing to do with. "You need to let me into my house," I said quietly. "Right now." That's when I heard it. A voice I recognized deeper than memory itself. "Brandon? Baby, is that you?" My mother, Evelyn Scott, appeared behind Tamara like she'd materialized from thin air. She was wearing an apron, the yellow one I'd bought her for Mother's Day 2 years ago, and she had paint on her left hand. Dried paint. Like she'd been working for hours. "Mama." My mouth went completely dry. "What are you doing here?" She looked between me and Tamara with this strained, uncomfortable smile, like she was praying I wouldn't ask the obvious. "I was just helping Tamara with a few things, baby. The living room needed some updating and I thought." "Mama." I cut her off. "Did you know about the locks?" Silence stretched out like a held breath. "Did you know Darius was here?" She looked down at the paint staining her fingers. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Yes." That word hit me like a closed fist to the chest. My mother. The woman who slept in her car outside my elementary school during thunderstorms because I was scared of lightning. The woman who worked double shifts at Grady Hospital so I could have Jordans instead of off-brand sneakers. The woman who cried at my wedding and called Tamara her daughter. She knew. She'd been here, in my house, painting walls, while I was in a hospital bed 3 miles away with a drainage tube in my side. "Come inside and we can talk," Tamara started. "I'm not coming inside until someone explains to me exactly what is happening here." I stepped back, pressing my hand over my stitches. "And somebody better start talking fast before I call the police." Tamara rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Brandon." That was the moment something shifted inside me. Something permanent. Something that would never go back to how it was. I called Brandon Williams from the driveway. My best friend since Morehouse. He picked up on the first ring. "Bro, you home?" "I'm standing outside my house," I said. "They changed the locks. Tamara's got some man named Darius in there. And my mama is inside helping her paint the walls." Dead silence. Then, "Say that again slowly." I said it again. "Do not move," Brandon said. "I'm 20 minutes away. Don't go anywhere, don't sign anything, and do not let them bait you into putting your hands on anyone. You hear me? You are a black man standing outside your house. Be smart. I'm coming." He was right. I sat down on my own front steps and focused on breathing. The drainage tube pulled when I exhaled too hard. I hadn't eaten anything since the apple juice and crackers from hospital discharge. I opened my phone and called my cousin Rochelle, paralegal at a real estate firm in Buckhead. "Brandon, aren't you still recovering?" "Just got discharged. I need to know something fast. My name is on the deed to my house. My wife is not on the deed, not on the mortgage, not on anything. She changed the locks and there's a man inside. What are my rights in Georgia?" Rochelle's voice sharpened immediately. "She cannot legally do that. Georgia lockout laws are clear. If your name is on the deed and hers is not, she has zero standing to deny you entry or change those locks. Call the police. They will compel access. Even while we're still legally married. Unless she has a restraining order against you, which I'm guessing she doesn't, you can walk right back in. But Brandon, listen to me. Document everything first. I looked up at my house and took a long, slow breath. For the first time since the Uber dropped me off, I felt something shift from panic into purpose. Brandon Williams pulled up in his F-150 with his phone already recording. That man moved like someone who'd been waiting for a reason to show up, and today was the day. "You look terrible," he said, hugging me carefully around the stitches. "I feel worse." I showed him the key. He nodded and walked straight to the door and knocked loud and hard. Darius answered again. This time less casual, more alert, like he'd been coached during the 20 minutes I'd been sitting on those steps. "We need to speak with Tamara," Brandon said calmly. "She's not available." "Sir." Brandon kept his voice even, professional. "My name is Brandon Williams. This is Brandon Scott, who owns this property. His name appears on the deed recorded with DeKalb County. We are documenting this interaction. We'd like to have a civil conversation before the police arrive." Something flickered in Darius's eyes. A small crack in the confidence. Tamara reappeared. "Brandon, stop making a scene in front of the neighbors." "A scene?" I stepped forward. "You moved a man into my house while I was on an operating table. You changed the locks on a home that is legally mine. You had my own mother in there helping you redecorate. And I'm the one making a scene." "This relationship isn't working," Tamara said flatly. "It hasn't worked in a long time and you know that. Then we file for divorce. That's what adults do. You don't move someone in and change the locks while I'm unconscious in a hospital." Darius leaned forward. "She said it isn't working. Take the hint, man." Brandon Williams stepped directly in front of me before I could respond. "I'm going to say this one time. My friend has a legal right to enter this house. The police will confirm that in about 8 minutes. So you have two choices right now: step aside voluntarily, or explain to DeKalb County officers why you're occupying a home you have absolutely zero legal standing in." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. The officers arrived 11 minutes after Brandon Williams called them. Two professionals, unmoved by Tamara's tears or Darius's posturing. They looked at my deed. They looked at my ID. They walked me inside. My house. The living room walls were now a deep burgundy I never would have chosen. My sectional sofa had been shoved to one wall to make room for a leather recliner I'd never seen. A picture on my mantel showed Tamara and Darius at Stone Mountain, smiling like a couple on vacation. I stood in the middle of my own living room feeling like a ghost in my own life. My mother sat at the kitchen table, looking small and ashamed. I sat across from her while the officers stood nearby. "Mama, how long have you known about Darius?" She rubbed her hands together the way she always does when she's uncomfortable. "About 3 months." 3 months. I let that land. "And you said nothing." "She told me you two were already separating," Mama whispered. "She said you'd agreed to live apart while you figured things out. I didn't want to be in the middle of it, Brandon. But you came here and painted her walls. She said she needed help. I thought." "Mama." I leaned forward. "You thought what? That coming here and redecorating while I was in surgery was being neutral? That's not being in the middle. That's choosing a side." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't know it would be like this." "But you knew he was here. You knew the locks were changed. And you said nothing to me." I pressed my hand to my stitches. "I am your son. I am your blood. And you chose her." For the first time in my life, my mother's tears didn't move me. And that broke my heart in a completely different way. The officers let me walk through my own home while Tamara watched with cold eyes and Darius waited outside on my porch, with zero authority to do anything about anything. When Brandon Williams stepped into the hallway to take a call from Rochelle, Tamara cornered me in the bedroom. "You need to leave," she said quietly. "This is only making things worse for both of us." I looked around. She'd changed the bedding to olive green the first didn't recognize. Darius's overnight bag sat open on the chair in the corner, like he'd been unpacking. Like he was settling in. Tamara. I turned to face her. When did you stop loving me? She blinked. That question caught her off guard. It wasn't about love, Brandon. Then what was it about? She sat on the edge of the bed and crossed her arms. You were always working. Always fixing something in this house. Always obsessed with the mortgage and the future you were building. You never once asked me if that was the future I wanted. I was building it for us. You were building it for you. I was just the person you invited along for the ride. Her voice was quiet but sharp as glass. I stood there letting that sink in. It hurt. And the worst part, it was partially true. I knew that. I'd been so focused on building that I'd sometimes forgotten to just be with her. You could have told me, I said. You could have sat me down and said, Brandon, I'm unhappy, I need something different. You could have done that. I tried, she said. Not hard enough. I looked at Darius's bag. Because this isn't trying. This is burning everything down. She didn't respond. That silence told me something I'd been avoiding for years, that Tamara and I had been over long before Darius ever walked through that door. Brandon Williams came back inside with a look I'd only seen on his face once before, the night he found out his business partner had been quietly stealing from their company account for 2 years. Bro, he said carefully. I need to show you something right now. He handed me his phone. On the screen was a Facebook profile. Darius Lenwood. Contractor. Atlanta, GA. And right there under family, relationship status, married. To a woman named Priscilla Lenwood. Together since 2020. I stared at that screen for a long moment. He's married, I said. 4 years. Priscilla lives in College Park. She posted a birthday photo for him last month. They have a dog named Biscuit. I looked through the front window at Darius standing on my porch, relaxed, talking on his phone, completely at ease in a situation he had manufactured. Tamara doesn't know, Brandon Williams said. You sure about that? He tilted his head. Would she have let him move in if she did? I thought about that carefully. Tamara was impulsive and capable of real cruelty when she felt cornered. But she had one hard line. She'd watched her father cheat on her mother for 12 years. She'd sworn from the time she was a teenager that she would never, ever be the other woman. Darius hadn't just played me. He'd played her too. Part of me, I'll be honest, wanted to let it sit. Let karma work at its own speed. Let her discover it the hard way. But something else, something that still remembered the man I was before all this started, wouldn't let me do that. Go get her, I told Brandon Williams. He looked at me for a moment, then nodded and went. Tamara came into the kitchen still wearing that silk robe, arms crossed, ready for another argument. Brandon Williams closed the door behind her. What now, Brandon? I held up the phone. I didn't say a word. Just let her read. I watched her eyes move across the screen. Watched her face shift from irritation to confusion, then confusion to something volcanic. What is this? She whispered. Darius Lenwood, I said. Married. 4 years. Wife named Priscilla. Lives in College Park. She snatched the phone from my hand and stared at it. Scrolled. Her jaw got tight. Her breathing changed. No, she said. Soft at first. Then louder. No. She walked to the front door and swung it open. Darius. He turned around with that same easy smile. One look at her face and it dissolved. Who is Priscilla? Tamara's voice was deadly quiet. Darius went completely still. Who is Priscilla? Tamara, let me explain. Are you married? The silence that followed was its own answer. And watching Tamara's face in that moment, the betrayal, the humiliation, the fury, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction. Grief. For both of us. For what this had all become. Get out, she said. Get your bag and get out of this house right now. Tamara. Get out. He left. Didn't argue, didn't fight it. Just grabbed his bag and walked past me without making eye contact. The leather recliner stayed. I'd deal with that later. The house went very quiet. Tamara stood in the middle of my living room surrounded by burgundy walls she'd painted and a life she'd tried to build with a man who was already someone else's husband. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I found my mother still at the kitchen table an hour later, after the officers left and Darius was gone and the house felt like the aftermath of something terrible. She was staring at her hands. The paint was still there, dried into the lines of her knuckles. "I owe you more than an apology," she said before I could speak. "Yeah," I said. "You do. I should have called you the minute she told me you two were having problems. I should have come to see you at the hospital. I should have." Her voice broke. "I made wrong choices, Brandon. I don't have an excuse." I sat down across from her. My side was aching. I was running on empty and emotional fumes, and I was sitting in my own kitchen having a conversation I never imagined having with the woman who raised me. "Why didn't you tell me, Mama? Just tell me the truth." She was quiet for a long moment. "Tamara told me things. About how you made her feel. About the marriage. And I thought maybe she was right that you'd grown apart. I thought I was staying out of it by not saying anything. But I wasn't staying out of it, was I?" "No," I said. "You were participating in it." She flinched. But she didn't look away. "That told me something. I need you to understand something," I said carefully. "I love you. That doesn't change. But what you did hurt me. Not just because of the house or the locks or any of that. Because I was in a hospital bed, scared, and the two people I expected to be on my side were here painting someone else's walls." Mama put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. I reached over and put my hand on her arm. "Because I was raised right, even when the people who raised me weren't perfect. We're gonna have to work through this," I said. "But I need time." Rochelle showed up the next morning with a notary, a recorder, and the focused energy of someone who had been waiting for an opportunity to be useful. She documented everything. The changed locks, which a locksmith confirmed were installed 8 days ago, while I was still pre-surgery and had no idea what was coming. The alterations to the property. Darius's presence in the home. All of it captured and time-stamped. "You have a strong case," she told me at the kitchen table. "The lock change alone is a civil matter. Any alterations made to the property without your consent, that's documented damage. And since she has no legal ownership stake in this house, her standing in divorce proceedings regarding the property is minimal." Tamara sat in the living room listening. She'd stayed the night, on the couch, not in my bedroom, and hadn't spoken more than 10 words since Darius left. Whatever fire she'd had yesterday was gone. What remained was something quieter and sadder. "She's not a bad person," Rochelle told me privately, in the hallway. "She's someone who made really bad choices. That distinction doesn't help me much right now." "No," Rochelle agreed. "But it might help you later." I filed for divorce that afternoon. Not out of rage, out of clarity. Tamara and I had been building toward this for years, and maybe if we'd both been more honest earlier, it wouldn't have exploded like this. But it had exploded. And I wasn't going to pretend otherwise to keep the peace. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Diane Foster, called me that evening. "You've got everything documented, your name is on the deed, and there's no shared financial entanglement in the property," she said. "This is actually straightforward. It's the emotional part that'll take time." "I know," I said. "I know." 6 months later, I was standing in my living room with a paint roller in my hand. The burgundy walls were gone. I'd primed over them twice and now I was rolling on a warm, clean, accessible beige, close to what it had been before, but not the same. Nothing was exactly the same. I'd learned that fighting it was pointless. You rebuild, you don't restore. Brandon Williams was on the couch eating a sandwich, providing what he called emotional support through physical presence. My mother had called that morning. We'd been doing weekly calls, slow and careful, rebuilding something that had cracked. It wasn't fixed. But it was honest now, and honest felt better than comfortable ever had. The divorce was finalized 4 weeks ago. Clean and quiet, the way Diane promised. Tamara kept her car and her savings. I kept the house. She moved to her cousin's place in Stone Mountain, and I heard through the grapevine she'd stopped talking to Darius entirely once she found out Priscilla had known about her the whole time. He'd told his wife he was helping a friend with a living situation. There is no bottom to some people's audacity. I thought about everything that happened a lot in those 6 months. About the man I'd been in that marriage. Driven, yes, but sometimes so focused on building the future I forgot to live inside the present. About my mother, who loved me imperfectly and was learning to do better. About Tamara, who deserved honesty earlier, even if what she did in response was unforgivable. I wasn't bitter. Bitterness would mean letting it live in me forever. And this house was mine. My peace was mine. My future was mine. I dipped the roller. Pressed it to the wall. Watched the color spread clean and even and new. Nobody was changing my locks again. Not ever.